Expected points, clean sheet odds, and who is the best captain. This video has got all of the information you need to know ahead of game week 6. Alright, I just wanted to start off the video by saying all of the expected points data you see here is courtesy of Fantasy Football Hub. You can sign up to Fantasy Football Hub using the link in the top of the description below. I get you 50% off, and if you don't win your mini league, tell Fantasy Football Hub and they will give you your money back for the subscription. So we're going to go position by position in terms of their expected points model. We're going to look at game week 6 in isolation, and then we're going to have a look at the next 5 weeks. I think for people on their wild card, for example, looking at who are the top players in each position for expected points over the next 5 game weeks is going to be a useful metric. So goalkeepers then for game week 6 in isolation. Number 1 is Donnarumma. I've been obviously really impressed with how he's done at City. Apologies, I couldn't actually find a picture of him yet in a City shirt because obviously he signed sort of late in the window. I don't think they've taken official photos yet. But he's got Burnley. I think that's a pretty good odds of a Man City clean sheet in that game. And I do think one of the weaknesses I think Man City had from a defensive point of view in seasons gone by, obviously Ederson is a fantastic ball-playing goalkeeper. No denying that. But Donnarumma is very good in that regard. But he is probably, well, he's just won the Yashin Trophy last night, right? He's probably the best shot stopper in world football, right? So he's top. Burnley at home for him. Vicario's got Wolves at home. I think Vicario is actually a decent shout. He made a mistake, I believe, in game week 5. But I don't think he's going to leave the Spurs starting 11. Yeah, I do like Vicario. I think the Spurs defence looks strong. He could be a good option. Sales, I'm not too keen on the Forest defence, but given that they've still got one, well, they played Burnley and Sunderland in 2 weeks, didn't they? This is the second of those 2 promoted teams they're playing. It's a good fixture. He's obviously going to be high in expected points. Pickford and then Sanchez. Interesting, obviously, about Sanchez. Getting sent off against Man United. There was speculation, talk from Maresca in the week leading up to game week 5 that he could potentially be rotated for Jurgensen because of, all the football that Chelsea have. In my opinion, there's a good chance, given how much of a blunder error that, that was in game week 5. There's a chance I think he could be dropped. So that's something I would say on Sanchez. In terms of the next 5 weeks then, so 1 week Donnarumma was top, but over the next 5, Raya is top. The Arsenal fixtures are pretty decent, and I would say quite comfortably in my mind that Arsenal are the best defence in the league. Donnarumma, Alisson, Vicario and Pope are your other top keepers for the next 5. Then we go to defenders, and for game week 6 in isolation, O'Reilly from Man City is actually the top defender. Now, if you're picking a team for 1 week, he's probably a consideration. But for me, I'd probably just go for Guardiola, right? Guardiola is probably the most nailed on, I think, Man City defender. Even Ruben Diaz seems to miss weeks here or there, but Guardiola, I think, is pretty much absolutely nailed on, right? He's got Burnley at home, good chance for clean sheet for Man City there. I think he's a good option. And I'm not exactly sure how Man City will line up. I think Aït-Nouri's injured, isn't he? So does that potentially mean he could play at left back? Who knows? I guess we'll see. Chalobah of Chelsea, I really like him. I actually think as a player he's fantastic. He's been really good for Chelsea. Scoring a couple of goals this season as well from set pieces. 5.1 million, he's got Brighton as his fixture. Romero, I think if money was no object, he's probably my favourite Tottenham defender now. With Porro sort of losing some of his set-piece responsibility to Xavi Simons, he's probably dropped off a little bit in my consideration of Tottenham defenders. Romero, though, I think he offers a lot of goal threat from set pieces. They obviously have Xavi Simons if he starts taking the set pieces. And also he's fantastic for DEFCON as well as Romero. So I think best Tottenham defender, money is no object, is definitely Romero. And then we got Tosin of Chelsea. Again, I'm not entirely sure if both of those are like Chalobah and Tosin are absolutely nailed every game. But if they do play, I think they're going to do well. And Tosin at 4.5 million, he starts regularly, I think could be good value. Now we've got cheap defenders. So I thought, yeah, we're looking at some of the defenders in the game here, but you need to, looking at the best defenders is usually looking at some of the most expensive, but you need to complement those players with some cheaper ones. So we got a view of cheap defenders for the next game week. O'Reilly again is obviously top. Tosin, Nico Williams, Van de Ven and Zinchenko complete the list. Now we've got a couple of Forest defenders in here. Obviously they got a kind fixture against Sunderland. Would I pick them for the long run though? Under Ange, probably not, to be fair. I do like Van der Ven. I think if you can't afford to go for Romero, of course, Van der Ven is going to be a good option. In terms of the next 5 weeks, and there's a couple of names that I think are missing from here, I'll be honest, that I would personally chuck in here if I was using my personal opinions. Gabriel's top. Obviously, like I said, when talking about David Raya, the Arsenal clean sheet odds are really good. He's got Newcastle away as his next fixture. Obviously, St James's Park is a tough old place to go. And then the fixtures improve a lot. Chalobah, Tosin, Guardiola and Virgil van Dijk are the other ones. But there's two that I personally wanted to mention. Actually, three that I wanted to mention as well. One of them being James Tarkowski. Now, he might not necessarily keep as many clean sheets as Gabriel will, but Tarkowski is averaging DEFCON points every single game. So he will score an additional 2 points per game, basically almost every game, I think, with the amount of defensive contributions that he gets. The same applies to Senesi from Bournemouth, and I think Anderson from Fulham as well. Those three will pretty much score an extra 2 points per game from DEFCON. It's just a case of how many clean sheets will their teams, their respective teams keep. But I do think Everton, Bournemouth, Fulham, they're going to keep an average amount of clean sheets. They're not going to be the same level as Arsenal's, but at the same time, I don't think they're going to be too bad. I think Everton, Fulham, and in Bournemouth are terrible defences. So I would add those to the list as well. In terms of midfielders then, for Game Week 6, now, a lot of people might be getting rid of Salah on their wildcard, and I think it's somewhat justified because you're doing so based on captaincy rather than is he the best midfielder in the game. Because I still think, money no object, he's probably the best midfielder in the game, right? But with the way the fixtures have kind of switched between Liverpool and Man City for Game Week 6 and beyond, I do think there's potential justification not to have him. In second place, we've got Semenyo. He's got Leeds away. I mean, he took the last penalty for Bournemouth. He's looked sensational for Bournemouth this season as Semenyo. He's obviously a good option. Foden, I quite like Foden, actually. You're obviously taking a little bit of a risk with his minutes, but given like how many injuries Man City have at the moment, you've got to think, actually, his minutes are relatively secure. Speaking of secure minutes, I don't really think, other than possibly Salah, there is a Premier League midfielder with more solid minutes than Bruno Fernandes. He did actually get subbed early in the Chelsea game, but I think he's obviously a fantastic option. DEFCON, penalties, free kicks, and obviously goals from open play as well. He can just score points from anywhere in this game. And then Reinders, who's been obviously fantastic for Man City. I benched him in Game Week 5 for his 9-pointer against Arsenal. Let's hope he can get some returns against Burnley. In terms of cheap midfielders then, so I did a filter here of 7 million and below. We got Reinders and Rodri as the top two. I think Rodri might get some DEFCON against Burnley and has a chance for an attacking return, but Reinders is top. Enjoy of Everton, who for me is one of my favourite midfielders in the game now. He might not be like on the same level as the likes of Semenyo in terms of pure attacking returns, but he's also ridiculous for DEFCON. Like, he is averaging around 10 DEFCON per game, and he's also got 3 attacking returns so far this season. And Everton play West Ham at home, and he's on penalties. I mean, the list of good points about him in FPL is endless for me. He's basically a sort of Bruno Fernandes light version, if you like, but he's playing in a more advanced position. Kudus is probably the only Spurs attacker I think I would pick, to be honest. He seems to be the one that Thomas Frank favours the most. He's played really well when I've seen him. And yeah, in terms of Premier League minutes, he's probably the best. And Kevin Schade of Brentford is on there as well. In terms of the next 5 weeks, I think the list is pretty, well, as you'd probably expect, to be honest. Salah and Semenyo are the top two, followed by Bruno Fernandes. Then you've got Saka and Palmer underneath them. Saka, I expect, well, he should be back for the Newcastle away fixture. Palmer, will wait and see. We need an update on his injury that he sustained against Man United. Looked like a reoccurrence of the groin injury he was struggling with. Now, if he's back against Brighton, he can still be a good option, right? But I would be a little bit worried about that injury now and how long it will drag out for. In terms of forwards, no real surprise to see Haaland top. 8.9 expected points for him against Burnley. I think so far this season, that is the highest expected points total for a game week I've seen. Obviously, we're only 6 game weeks in. But when you look at all the projections as well across the season, like projected goals, for example, the Man City at-home fixture versus Burnley is the highest I've seen. So all the markets and odds are projecting Haaland to do really well this week. So it's obviously the best captain, right? I don't think that's a surprise. We'll talk about captaincy in a second. But I do think there's an argument around triple captain, but we'll get to that. Watkins, I can't believe he's on this list, but he's putting up some underlying numbers, I suppose. Fulham is not a terrible fixture, but Aston Villa have they've been rubbish, haven't they? I'm not sure I can back that. João Pedro, Brighton at home for him, 5.7 expected points. Chris Wood with Sunderland, 5.6. Then you got Mateta, even though he's playing Liverpool, still with 5.2 predicted points. Cheap forwards, I wanted to particularly draw attention to one, but Evan Nilsson is top, followed by Thiago of Brentford. I really like Strand Larsen. He's back fit now for Wolves, and I was very close to going with him in my Game Week 1 team. And those that did, just really unlucky that he picked up the injury. I think Strand Larsen, similar to like Njai, without, I guess, the DEFCON, he just ticks all the boxes of what you want in an FPL asset. Plays every game, largely 90 minutes. I think he might still need getting up to speed after his injury. He takes penalties. And importantly, his team don't play in Europe. So you're not worried about him being rotated. Calvert-Lewin, who I think scored 2 goals, didn't he, in Game Week 5. And Richarlison is there as well. I do like Richarlison. But the thing is, how long is he going to stay in that Spurs starting 11 with Solanke due back? I think anytime soon. Over the next 5 game weeks, the forwards list kind of speaks for itself. And it's not too controversial, I don't think. Well, actually, Watkins in there is for me. Haaland is number 1, Watkins number 2. I've just not been convinced. I don't know how you feel, but I've not been convinced at all by Villa this season. João Pedro and Gyökeres. For me, the 3 best forwards in the game right now, Haaland, João Pedro, Gyökeres. And as the fixtures turn, for Arsenal after Game Week 6, I think Gyökeres is going to bang in a load of goals. I remember Charlie Austin, a former Premier League striker, talking about him on Sky Sports News, saying he's a bit of a flat-track bully, in a sense that he doesn't necessarily score his goals in the games against the tough opposition, but he does against the weaker teams. So targeting Gyökeres when Arsenal have a good fixture run is probably the way to use him. And it looks like after Game Week 6, he has exactly that. In terms of clean sheet odds then, well, obviously, looking at the expected points, Man City are high for Game Week 6. They're not too bad across the board, actually. 7, 8 and 9, they're in and around 30%. And then in 9, they're 44. But Arsenal are the ones that really kind of attract me. 33% in Game Week 6, which is the Newcastle fixture. And then for the next 4 game weeks, they're all above 40% to keep a clean sheet, which I think is really strong. Other teams to note, Chelsea, they do have a relatively tough game in 7, but then 8, 9 and 9, they've got good odds. And in Game Week 9, they're 50% to keep a clean sheet. Villa, I know they've been poor from an attacking point of view, but defensively, I think they've been relatively solid. They got a couple of good games for a clean sheet odds. Spurs, there or thereabouts. And those 3 teams, sort of Everton, Bournemouth, Fulham, with Anderson, Senesi and Tarkowski, their clean sheet odds across the board are not bad. Like Bournemouth have above 30% clean sheet odds in 3 of the next 5 game weeks. And when they don't, I was going to say that Everton and Fulham have better fixtures, but they kind of do. They sort of rotate well. Like in Game Week 10, when Bournemouth's clean sheet odds are poor, Everton and Fulham's are good, for example. So I think that rotation of Senesi, Anderson, and I'm forgetting his name, Tarkowski in your defence could be a good way to play it. And then finally, the captaincy. I'm not going to beat around the bush. Salah is not the best captain for Game Week 6, as he may have been in previous weeks. For me, it's Haaland. He's absolutely clear. And I think a lot of people are going to be on their wild card, so they naturally can't play the triple captaincy chip. But I think if you've got Haaland already, don't plan to wildcard, you could well use your triple captain this week. Like I said, I've not seen an expected points figure higher than 8.9, which he is for Game Week 6. I think pretty good justification to use the triple captain chip. Honestly, this slide, I just wanted to show how clear Haaland is in terms of expected points. And I just think you absolutely, if you do all you can to get him in your team for Game Week 6, because if you don't, and he absolutely goes mad against Burnley, which I think he's got every potential to do, you're going to be punished for it. All right, well, that's the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. If you did, please leave me a like rating. Remember to check out Fantasy Football Hub, link in the description below. And yeah, if you want to see more content from me, please subscribe to the Golden Goal channel. It should be just here on your screen. I think that's everything. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.